The Southeast Asia Energy Transition Partnership is a program of the United Nations Office for Project Services and is a multi-donor partnership of government and philanthropic partners working to facilitate sustainable energy transition in Southeast Asia. We empower our partner countries Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, and projects across the region to transition towards a sustainable energy system, generate economic growth, and ensure energy security. At the heart of our work lies a deep commitment to creating a sustainable future, aligned with the Paris climate targets and Sustainable Development Goals. Our mission is to facilitate a just energy transition in Southeast Asia.
Vietnam has gained significant success in socio-economic development. However, together with such growth is the increase of greenhouse gas emissions. To move forward a lower carbon emission economy, the 2020 Law on Environmental Protection and Decree 06/2022 NDCP of the government assigns the Ministry of Finance to take the lead in the establishment of the carbon market and the development and establishment of the carbon trade exchange. The technical assistance on assessment of countries' readiness and international experience for carbon trade exchange design is one of the key activities within the framework of cooperation in energy transition and greenhouse gas reduction in Vietnam of the Southeast Asia Energy Transition Partnership, ETP. As demonstrated, this technical assistance, supported by ETP, will help the Ministry of Finance achieve three key goals. First, it aims to enhance capacity and understanding of the current state of Vietnam's legal and institutional infrastructure, identifying the gaps that must be addressed in order to establish and operate a carbon credit trading platform. Second, it will involve a review of experiences from countries with similar contexts or those that have successfully implemented and operated a credit trading platform. By drawing lessons from these examples, we can propose suitable solutions and develop a roadmap for effectively establishing and operating such a platform in Vietnam. Project activities include three phases. The first phase is the preparation phase. The official project implementation phase will consist of three main tasks. First, we will review international experience to assess the legal, institutional, and infrastructure requirements for building and operating a carbon credit trading platform. Second, we will assess Vietnam's current domestic situation in terms of its legal framework, institutions, and infrastructure to determine what is needed to establish a domestic carbon credit trading exchange. Lastly, we will analyze the gaps between international standards and Vietnam's current conditions to propose the most effective options for establishing and operating the platform. The final stage is the completion stage. We will consult with relevant agencies, and in addition, we have activities related to assessment, capacity building with those gaps and with the proposals and the options Vietnam chooses, the units, the relevant agencies when participating in the establishment and operation of the carbon credit trading floor will need to enhance their professional knowledge, skills. That is the next task of the completion stage. The project will conclude with a final report and a final workshop to review progress and future steps. The project team consists of experts from three companies: the Institute of Ecology and Environment, represented by Ms. Nguyen Timi Hong; Green Climate Innovation Company Ltd., represented by Ms. Nguyen Hong Lan; and the Korean company EcoEye, represented by Ms. Park Hyun Shin. Additionally, we are supported by independent consultants. Leading the consulting team is Dr. Pham Phan Dung, who also serves as the domestic legal expert on carbon credit exchanges. With his extensive experience at the Ministry of Finance and his involvement in developing securities laws and state regulatory activities, Dr. Zung will contribute valuable insights to this project. We also have two international experts, Mr. Russell Kwek Kaiji, an international legal expert on carbon credit exchanges from Singapore, and Mr. Albert de Haan, an international expert on carbon credit operations from the Netherlands. Mr. de Haan has previously supported the operation of carbon credit trading platforms across Europe and is currently assisting China in piloting operations in 7 provinces and cities. The assignment looked at 21 existing ETSs in the world with operating CTXs to select case studies based on 6 criteria, including years of operation, contextual similarity, traded volume, transaction price, use of carbon credits, and linking for the in-depth analysis of international experience concerning legal, institutional, and infrastructure requirements for the CTX. After the multi-criteria analysis, 4 ETSs with the highest rankings were selected. namely UK ETS, New Zealand ETS, California ETS, and Korea ETS. Selected case studies have fulfilled several of the following criteria. At least more than 5 years ETS operation. High contextual similarity to Vietnam, such as having ETS at the national level, located in Asia, with a developing economy and allowance traded volume of over 20 million tons carbon dioxide with transaction prices over $10. Among the chosen ETSs, some ETSs allow the use of carbon credits and have linkages to other ETSs. The multi-criteria analysis aimed to ensure that the selected case studies have a similar country context with Vietnam and can offer the most relevant experiences for the establishment and operation of the CTX. The review of international experience showed that a robust regulatory framework is a cornerstone of a credible CTX. Each country established its exchange under a dedicated law, supported by comprehensive regulations and guidelines governing allowance trading, market oversight, and participant compliance. Aligning this framework with international standards further bolstered transparency and market integrity. The market structure in all 4 case studies includes a primary market that operates for auctioning of allowances and a secondary market that operates for trading of allowances and carbon credits. None of the case studies opted for the creation of a new exchange, instead leveraging existing financial platforms within their jurisdictions. Among them, only California utilized the Western Climate Initiative Program as an auction platform. The remaining countries conducted auctions through designated carbon trade exchanges. Additionally, the secondary market structure varied, with California and New Zealand featuring multiple platforms, while Korea and the UK employed a single exchange model. Besides the exchanges, i.e. auctioning platform and secondary trading platforms, the Emission trading registry and the resettlement and clearinghouse are the most important infrastructure for the ETS and operate in connection to the CTX. However, the case studies also revealed implementation challenges, ranging from market volatility and oversight issues to regulatory gaps. These challenges, in turn, spurred the development of robust compliance measures, enhanced market surveillance mechanisms, and required effective risk management strategies to mitigate volatility and ensure regulatory adherence. Additionally, the importance of strong institutional capacity, coupled with active stakeholder engagement, emerged as crucial for effective exchange and market management, as well as for promoting an inclusive and transparent system. Vietnam can learn from their rich experiences ranging from the case studies to create a reliable and robust governance and policy framework, apply a cost-effective and efficient institutional arrangement approach and infrastructure to establish the CTX and the carbon market, and foresee and prepare solutions in advance to ensure seamless market operation. The assignment also delved into the existing legal, institutional, and infrastructure conditions that are related to the establishment and operation of the CTX in Vietnam to identify gaps and provide recommendations on a suitable option and implementation roadmap the CTX in Vietnam. Vietnam has developed the legal and institutional framework for the carbon market and the CTX, most importantly through the 2020 Law on Environmental Protection and Decree 06/2022 NDCP. Besides, there is also existing infrastructure based on exchanges for trading securities under the Vietnam Exchange, VNX, and for trading commodities under the Mercantile Exchange of Vietnam, MXV. However, there remain gaps for Vietnam to address to move forward with the establishment and operation of the CTX. To find solutions to address the above-mentioned legal, institutional, and infrastructure gaps, different options were provided for the establishment and the structure of the CTX, which laid the foundation for formulating the corresponding recommendations in terms of legal, institutional, and infrastructure aspects. First of all, regarding the establishment of the CTX, Option 1 is to establish the CTX based on the infrastructure system of the Securities Exchange. This option is advantageous in terms of leveraging existing infrastructure, manpower, and resources. Option 2 is to develop the CTX model independent from the stock exchange system, managed by Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, MNRA. This option can ensure unified market management authority by MNRA. Secondly, the structure for the operation of the CTX has 2 aspects: primary market and secondary market. Each market structure was also provided with 2 options. For structuring the primary market, the first option is free allocation of allowances for all covered entities and certification of carbon credits eligible for transactions on the secondary market. This option has the advantage of reducing the financial burden for the ETS-covered entities. The second option involves free allocation of allowances combined with auctioning and certification of carbon credits eligible for transactions on the secondary market. This option provides more incentives for enterprises to take greenhouse gases mitigation actions, since otherwise they have to pay for emissions at a higher cost than a completely free allocation system. It makes the market more active and liquid. Finally, for structuring the secondary market, Option 1 allows trading both allowances and carbon credits on a centralized system with separate panels for allowances and carbon credits. The advantages of this option include more transparent market information in terms of transacted prices and volumes and more reliable transactions, due to the involvement of the clearing infrastructure, since the market is highly regulated. In the second option, allowances are traded only on a centralized system. In parallel, carbon credits can be purchased from the domestic or international voluntary carbon market. This option offers more flexibility to allow linkage to the international carbon market. Based on the gap analysis and identification of different options to address the gaps, the consultant held consultation meetings with 6 relevant institutions, including Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, Vietnam Securities Depository and Clearing Corporation, VSDC, State Securities Commission of Vietnam, SSC, Hanoi Stock Exchange, HNX, and Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange, HOSE, from 27 to 29 November 2023, and a wide stakeholder consultation workshop was organized on November 30th, 2023, to consult the stakeholders about the recommended option for establishment of the CTX in Vietnam. Regarding legal recommendations, 1. MONRA will perform unified management of the carbon market, including establishing the registry system for allowances and carbon credits, setting regulations for the MRV system and requirements for allowances, carbon credits, and market participants, deciding on the scope of utilizing the stock exchange system when the market participants engage in trading allowances and carbon credits in the secondary market. 2. CTX is established based on utilizing the services from the stock exchange system managed by MOF, with the participation of SSC, VNX, VSDC, etc. The study also proposed legal documents to be issued, including decree issued by the government on establishing and operating the pilot CTX, decision issued by the Prime Minister assigning MONRA to develop and manage the carbon market, decision issued by the Prime Minister to assign the operation of the pilot CTX to VNX, VSDC, and MONRA, decision issued by MOF on adjusting the operating regulations of VNX and VSDC related to the pilot CTX, and other guiding documents for procedures to operate the CTX. Regarding the institutional recommendations, MONRA would play the leading role in the development and management of the carbon market, including the development and operation of the National Registry System and the operation of the CTX. MOF would collaborate with MONRA for the design, development, and operation of the CTX, playing the leading role in the financial management of the carbon market, providing directions for SSC, VNX, and VSDC to fulfill the requirements for carbon transactions. VSDC would collaborate with the National Registry System for application and account management, performing depository, clearing, and settlement for carbon transactions. VNX would assign the suitable stock exchange, HNX or HOSE, to provide a trading platform for the execution of carbon transactions. Regarding infrastructure recommendations, first, it is recommended to develop the National Registry, a primary and secondary trading platform for trading, and a centralized MRV system to track the compliance of the covered entities. Second, based on the review and selection of a specific model for the operation of the CTX in the next phase, further details of the infrastructure for the CTX would be envisioned.
The CTX, as a centralized platform for handling transactions of allowances and carbon credits, is defined in Law on Environmental Protection 2020 and is required to come into pilot operation from 2025. This is a challenging task for Vietnam to accomplish within more than a year, given the fact that the legal,
institutional framework and infrastructure for the domestic carbon market has not been fully developed. Under this technical assistance project, the international experiences and the national context of Vietnam, as well as their respective gaps regarding the legal, institutional, and infrastructure aspects of the establishment and operation of the CTX were reviewed and assessed. Different options for addressing the identified gaps were proposed and consulted with relevant stakeholders, and the recommendations were provided in this project. The project garnered significant interest from key stakeholders, notably relevant institutions and organizations under the Ministry of Finance and the Department of Climate Change of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. Through 3 workshops and 6 bilateral consultation meetings, a platform was established for stakeholders to discuss the recommendations and operational roadmap for the CTX and domestic carbon market. The stakeholder meetings stressed the importance for close collaboration between Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment to discuss and to decide on the basic elements of the CTX model and clearly define the roles and responsibilities of relevant agencies and organizations before moving on to the next steps, including completing the legal framework, institutional arrangements, and developing the infrastructure system. These valuable exchanges will inform the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment's ongoing research and development of the carbon market. The ultimate goal is to create an enabling environment for businesses and organizations to effectively and conveniently participate in the carbon market. This aligns with the nation's broader goal of achieving emission reduction targets at the business, sectoral, and national levels.